When you stop contacting her, something powerful happens, but not in the way most men imagine. Silence doesn't simply create distance. Silence creates space, and in that space, the mind begins to work in ways emotions never could. Human psychology, especially female psychology, is deeply responsive to emotional shifts, patterns, and sudden absences. When a woman is used to your presence, your messages, your attention, your availability, and that presence suddenly disappears, her emotional world doesn't become quiet. It becomes loud. At first, she may not react at all. On the surface, she may appear calm, unbothered, even relieved. But understand this, the first reaction is rarely the real one. The mind doesn't immediately panic when a pattern breaks. It tries to normalize it. She tells herself you're busy. She assumes you'll text later. She believes control is still in her hands. But as hours turn into days, something subtle begins to shift. The familiar rhythm is gone. The emotional certainty fades. And uncertainty is where curiosity is born. Women are emotionally intuitive, but intuition relies on feedback. When you stop contacting her, you remove that feedback. She no longer knows where she stands. She can't read your tone. She can't sense your energy. And that lack of information creates a psychological gap her mind will rush to fill. She starts replaying conversations. She remembers moments she didn't take seriously. She revisits the last thing she said, wondering if it pushed you away. This isn't manipulation. This is natural psychology. The brain hates unfinished stories. What's important to understand is that attraction doesn't grow in constant reassurance. It grows in emotional contrast. When you were always available, your attention felt safe, almost guaranteed. And the human mind doesn't deeply value what feels guaranteed. But when you pull back, your attention becomes scarce. Scarcity changes perception. Suddenly, you are no longer just present, you are valuable. This is where the shift truly begins. She starts checking her phone more often, not because she's desperate, but because her subconscious expects a message that doesn't arrive. Each time she checks and sees nothing, the absence reinforces itself. Her emotional brain starts asking questions logic cannot answer. Why hasn't he reached out? Did I misjudge his feelings? Is he losing interest or gaining control? And here's the part most people don't talk about. When you stop contacting her, she doesn't just miss you. She starts feeling herself through you. Your silence forces her to sit with her own emotions. Without your validation, she becomes aware of how much she enjoyed being desired by you, how safe it felt, how exciting it was, how grounding your attention became. Sometimes we don't realize the value of something until it stops reflecting us back to ourselves. Another powerful shift happens internally. Her imagination activates, and imagination is far more intense than reality. When you were present, she experienced you as you were. When you disappear, she experiences you as she imagines you, stronger, more confident, more mysterious, possibly moving on, possibly desired by someone else. Her mind begins to create stories, and those stories often make you more attractive than constant availability ever could. This doesn't mean she immediately chases you. Female psychology is layered. First comes observation. She watches, she waits, she tests indirectly. Maybe she views your story. Maybe she casually asks about you through mutual connections. Maybe she posts something designed to get your attention. These are not random actions. They are emotional probes. She is checking if your silence is real or if it's a temporary pause. If you remain silent with composure, another shift occurs: respect. Emotional control signals strength. When a man doesn't chase, doesn't explain, doesn't beg for attention, it communicates inner stability. And stability is deeply attractive. It suggests that your sense of self doesn't depend on her response, that you have options, that your world is full, and nothing triggers attraction like the feeling that someone chooses you, not needs you. Eventually, curiosity transforms into emotional tension. She begins to feel something subtle but powerful: loss of control. Not control over you, but control over the dynamic. And when control shifts, desire often follows, because desire thrives where effort is required, where outcomes are uncertain, where emotions are challenged. Now here's where most men make a mistake. They break the silence too early. The moment they sense she's thinking about them, they rush back in, long messages, explanations, emotional unloading. And in doing so, they erase the psychological impact of their absence. Silence only works when it is calm, grounded, and purposeful, not when it's used as a tactic fueled by fear. If she reaches out during your silence, the way you respond matters more than the fact that you respond: short, warm, unneedy, unreactive. This reinforces the shift that has already begun. She feels the change in energy. She senses that you are no longer chasing her approval. And that realization can be both unsettling and magnetic. If she doesn't reach out, something else happens. She still changes. She internalizes the experience. She carries the memory of how it felt when you stopped contacting her. That emotional imprint lingers. Even weeks later, even months later, a song, a moment, a quiet night can bring that feeling back. Because unresolved emotional tension doesn't disappear, it waits. Understand this clearly. Stopping contact is not about punishment, revenge, or control. It's about self-respect. It's about allowing emotional space to reveal truth. Some women will step forward when you step back. Others won't, and that outcome tells you everything you need to know. Silence filters intentions better than words ever could. When you stop contacting her, she either moves closer emotionally or reveals that she never planned to. Both results are clarity, and clarity is power. So if you ever wonder what happens when you disappear from her emotional radar, remember this: you don't vanish from her mind, you become a question, a feeling, a pause she didn't expect. And sometimes that pause becomes the moment she realizes what your presence truly meant. And the real question isn't whether she thinks about you when you stop contacting her. The real question is, are you strong enough to stay silent long enough to let the answer reveal itself? And as time stretches on, something even deeper unfolds beneath the surface of her awareness. Emotional attachment doesn't disappear just because communication stops. In fact, attachment often intensifies in absence because the brain begins to protect what it fears it might lose. When you stop contacting her, her emotions are no longer guided by your reassurance, they are guided by her own internal dialogue. And that dialogue can become relentless. She may go about her daily routine, laugh with friends, stay busy, but in quiet moments, late at night, early in the morning, your absence becomes loud again. She begins to compare. Every interaction she has with others subtly highlights what was different with you. The way you listened, the way you didn't rush her emotions, the way your presence felt steady instead of overwhelming. These comparisons are rarely conscious, but they are powerful. The human mind doesn't measure value in isolation, it measures it in contrast, and your silence becomes the contrast that sharpens your memory. At this stage, another psychological mechanism activates: emotional ownership. When you were always there, she didn't have to claim you emotionally, you felt accessible. But when you pull away, she starts feeling like she might lose something that had quietly become hers, not officially, not verbally, but emotionally. And emotional ownership is a strong trigger. It creates protectiveness. It creates longing. It creates the urge to reestablish connection, not because she needs attention, but because she wants to restore emotional balance. This is why some women suddenly become warmer after a period of silence. They laugh a little more when they talk to you again. They show more interest. They ask more questions. They invest more energy, not because you played a trick, but because the emotional dynamic reset. She felt what it was like to not have access to you, and that experience changed her internal positioning. But there's also another truth many avoid. Sometimes when you stop contacting her, she doesn't come back, and this outcome, while painful for the ego, is incredibly valuable for the soul. It reveals that the connection was sustained more by your effort than by mutual desire. And nothing drains a man faster than pouring energy into a place where it isn't reciprocated. Silence doesn't just test her feelings, it tests the foundation of the connection itself. If she doesn't return, it forces you to confront something important. Your worth does not increase through chasing. It increases through self-alignment, through choosing yourself, through investing your attention where it is appreciated, not tolerated. When you stop contacting her and she fades away, it's not a loss, it's a release from imbalance. And here's the paradox. The more you accept either outcome with calm confidence, the more attractive you become, not just to her, but to life itself. Emotional detachment doesn't mean emotional coldness. It means emotional maturity. It means you no longer demand outcomes. You allow them. And that energy is rare. Women are highly sensitive to emotional pressure. When they feel chased, they feel weighed down. When they feel free, they feel curious. When you stop contacting her without bitterness, without drama, without announcement, you communicate freedom. And freedom invites desire far more effectively than pursuit ever could. There is also something deeply masculine about restraint. about knowing when to step back, about trusting silence instead of forcing words. It signals that you don't need to convince anyone of your value. You embody it, and embodiment is felt more than explained. Eventually, whether days later or much later, she may reach out with something casual, a simple hey, a random question, a memory resurfaced. And in that moment, the power isn't in what you say, it's in who you've become during the silence. If you use the space to grow stronger, calmer, more focused, she will feel it immediately. Energy never lies. If she doesn't reach out at all, you still win something priceless: self-respect. You prove to yourself that you can let go without collapsing, that you can step back without losing yourself. And that realization changes how you move in every future connection. You stop clinging. You stop over-explaining. You stop fearing silence, because you've learned that silence is not emptiness, it's information. So when you stop contacting her, understand this: you are not trying to make her miss you. You are allowing truth to surface. You are allowing emotions to reveal themselves without interference. You are choosing clarity over confusion, dignity over desperation, strength over anxiety. And maybe one day she'll look back and realize the moment everything changed wasn't when you said something unforgettable. It was when you said nothing at all and finally gave her the space to feel what your presence truly meant. And as the days stretch into weeks, the psychological effects of your absence deepen in ways most men underestimate. Silence is a mirror. It reflects not just what she feels about you, but what she feels about herself when you are not there. Your presence had become a part of her emotional environment, like background music she didn't consciously notice until it stopped. Now, she notices every quiet moment, every empty space, and her mind begins to fill it with thoughts about you. She begins to imagine what you're doing, whether you're thinking about her, whether you've moved on, whether you still care. And all of this happens without a single word from you. This stage is subtle but profound. Women are wired to respond emotionally first and logically later. While she might outwardly act like she's unaffected, inwardly her mind is spinning scenarios. She's imagining conversations that never happened, interpreting actions you didn't take, questioning her own behavior, wondering what changed. This is not manipulation. It is human psychology responding to uncertainty and scarcity. The absence of contact forces her to examine the relationship from a perspective she rarely allows herself without your presence guiding the narrative. Sometimes she begins to question her own reactions. She wonders if she pushed you away, if she overreacted, if she underestimated you. She may replay your last interactions repeatedly, searching for clues. Every detail you said, every glance, every moment becomes amplified in her memory. This amplification is powerful because it transforms ordinary experiences into emotionally charged memories. Suddenly, she remembers your laughter differently, your attention differently, your calm presence differently. The small things become monumental. And then comes a shift in behavior. She may become more attentive in subtle ways, liking your social media posts, asking mutual friends about you, dropping hints in conversations that reference your absence. Not because she is consciously trying to manipulate you, but because her emotions are nudging her toward reconnection. Humans are wired to seek closure, to restore balance when something familiar disappears. Your absence is the imbalance, and her mind instinctively tries to correct it. At this point, it's essential to maintain composure. The temptation to rush back, to explain, to plead is strong, but doing so undermines everything the silence has created. Emotional tension is at its peak. It is delicate and transformative. Respond with calm confidence. Do not over-explain. Do not act desperate. Your strength is demonstrated not by how much you pursue, but by how calmly you allow the dynamic to unfold. If she doesn't reach out immediately or at all, you've still created impact. Your absence has revealed truths: who she is when she cannot control you, what she values, and how strong her feelings really were. Even if she never expresses it, even if she never admits it, the emotional imprint remains. Memory is sticky. Emotional memory is even stickier. Your disappearance has altered the emotional landscape, and once something changes psychologically, it rarely returns to its original state. During this period of silence, something else happens internally within you. You begin to reclaim yourself. You stop depending on her for validation. You start investing energy in growth, purpose, and alignment with your own life. And this is what makes silence transformative for both parties. The less dependent you are, the more magnetic you become. Women are naturally drawn to confidence, to self-sufficiency, to the quiet strength that doesn't beg for attention. Silence allows that energy to shine because it is not forced, it is naturally present. What's remarkable is how this principle extends beyond relationships. The same dynamics of absence and emotional contrast operate in friendships, business interactions, and life in general. When you learn to step back with intention, you begin to see patterns in human behavior, how people respond to scarcity, how attention is valued, and how respect is earned. This is why understanding female psychology is not manipulation, it is mastery of human nature. It is learning how emotions interact with actions, with presence, and with absence. Ultimately, the real power of stopping contact is not about making someone miss you. It is about allowing reality to unfold without interference. It is about giving both of you space to reflect, to feel, to understand the truth of the connection. Some will return, some will not. Some may return changed, more appreciative, more attentive. Others may reveal that they were never as invested as you assumed. Either way, clarity emerges, and clarity is freedom. So when you stop contacting her, you are not simply stepping away from a relationship. You are stepping into self-respect. You are allowing emotional truth to surface. You are creating space for desire to either intensify or fade naturally without force. And as you maintain your calm, grounded presence in absence, you realize something crucial. The true power is not in her reaction, but in your ability to let go, remain steady, and trust the process. The question is not whether she will notice your absence. The question is whether you are willing to embrace the silence long enough to let her actions, her thoughts, and her feelings reveal the truth that words could never convey.